So in that sense, they can be relied upon to carry out the work of the secret society without even knowing that that is the job that they're fulfilling. It's very important to know that. Now, there are three things we must understand about this group. They're not partisan. Perhaps that's one of the most important things to know. This is not Republicans versus Democrats. You'll find members of both major parties among this membership. And they laugh. They laugh at people who make a big deal about Republicans versus Democrats. They know it's completely a non-issue. They get along just fine, regardless of their political party differences. The second thing is that they are elitists. They intend to rule for our own good. They are serious about it. It's not just a pastime. It's not just a political opinion. They have dedicated a major portion of their lives to the fulfillment of this goal. They're serious. They have, most of them at the top at least, have this mentality of being at war. They have the morality of war. Talk about ethics. Now, what is ethical? What is moral? To these people, they follow the morality of war. That means that in war, there's only one immoral act, and that's to lose. Everything else is moral. We must understand that is the morality of the people that we're working against. Finally, the third thing we must understand, that the method by which they intend to rule is called democracy. And that's how we started this presentation. Democracy. They know that it is essential to keep the people content, to let them think that they are participating in their own political destiny. And how can you do that? How can you maintain control over the population and yet let them vote? And that is an issue that Quigley discussed in one of his books. It was Tragedy and Hope. And he said, this is very easy to solve. We can maintain control and give the people the right to vote so long as we don't let them vote on anything significant. He said, we do that by having two major political parties, and we control both of them, and we put on a big show of competition between the two of them, and let the boobs out there choose up sides. That's what he said. And he was right. Here's how he said it. These are not going to be his own words. He approvingly describes of this process. He says this: the national parties and their presidential candidates, with the Eastern establishment assiduously fostering the process behind the scenes, moved closer together and nearly met in the center with almost identical candidates and platforms. Although the process was concealed as much as possible by the revival of obsolescent or meaningless war cries and slogans, often going back to the Civil War. The argument that the two parties should represent opposed ideals and policies, one perhaps of the right and the other of the left, is a foolish idea, acceptable only by the doctrinaire and academic thinkers. Instead, the two parties should be almost identical, so that the American people can throw the rascals out at any election without leading to any profound or extreme shifts in policy. Either party in office becomes, in time, corrupt, tired, unenterprising, and vigorless. Then it should be possible to replace it every 4 years, if necessary, by the other party, which will be none of these things, but which still will pursue with new vigor approximately the same basic policies. End quote. Sound familiar? Yeah. We have been following the Quigley formula since World War I, ladies and gentlemen. That's how long this has been going on. It's just now that we're getting to realize, because it's so obvious, that this is the pattern that's being used against us. What are those basic policies? Those basic policies, ladies and gentlemen, are anything that continues to advance this nation toward the goal of a new world order based on the model of collectivism. They can quibble on anything else. You can have conservative fiscal policies, liberal fiscal policies. You can have strict marriage rules. You can have all these other things as long as you don't mess with the major plan, which is getting rid of American sovereignty, gobbling it up into a new model of collectivism. So you can afford to have these political parties and candidates debate anything else, but they never even discuss that, because that's not to be discussed. And so you can see that examples all throughout our recent history. The first time I really became aware of it as such was during the Carter administration, when the government gave away the Panama Canal. Wow, what a thing to do. It turned out that the polls indicated that the American people didn't want that. Republicans didn't want that. Democrats didn't want that. Nobody wanted that, except that was the policy of the Council on Foreign Relations. And that's what we got. When I saw that, well, they don't really care what the voters think at all, do they? I was just waking up. Of course they did. But in more modern times, we know that today the Republicans call for war in the Middle East. And they advocate that we give more power to the UN. Now, Democrats, they're different. They call for peace in the Middle East and advocate that we give more power to the UN. Even worse than that, even though they talk about peace in the Middle East, after they came to power and had the ability to change everything, they didn't change anything. Because that is the policy of the Council on Foreign Relations, you see. Not that the American people. Well, moving on, Republicans promote legislation to restrict rights in the name of anti-terrorism. Okay? Democrats give speeches of deep concern and then vote for those laws. The electorate doesn't want that. Republicans don't want that. Democrats don't want that. But that is the goal of the Council on Foreign Relations. As a matter of fact, most of the legislation that is now being pushed down our throats in the form of Patriot Acts and all those different things, those were all developed long before 9/11 by members of the Council on Foreign Relations. This was part of a long-range plan. Well, what else? We've got several. Democrats promote legislation to restrict freedom in the name of stopping global warming. Now, Republicans object strongly with that, and then they vote for those laws, just the same, and the electorate doesn't want all of these things, but that is the goal of the Council on Foreign Relations. The Republicans are interested in laws to prevent seditious speech. They're going to restrict freedom of speech because it could be seditious. The Democrats say that's terrible to do that, and they'll promote laws that restrict hate speech. You can be seditious, but you can't be hateful, you know, whatever. Or you can be the other way around. Either way, your speech is being restricted, and you're being nudged toward that totalitarian center. Republicans give speeches on the dangers of illegal immigration. Democrats give speeches about compassion. But both parties at the top joined together in merging the United States with Mexico and Canada so that there will no longer even be borders, and the issue of immigration will become a non-issue. And neither of the major political parties, Democrat or Republican, will even discuss that issue in the presidential debates. Why? Because that's the goal of the Council on Foreign Relations. It's not what the American people want at all. Now finally, we've got to get clear on this. Republican leaders steal elections with rigged electronic voting machines. Clear that they've done this, and probably will continue to do this. And you think the Democrats are up in arms about it? Well, the rank and file, they are, but the people at the top, they're silent as little church mice. The movements, right, these ladies here with Vote Rescue and Coalition for support from the Democrats or the Republicans? Negative. They wish these people would just go away. Now, the conclusion of that is very unsettling. That means that the people at the tops of these organizations, Republican and Democrat Party, are in on the fix. You see, a rigged voting machine is the ultimate implementation of the Quigley formula. Let the people think that they're participating in their own political destiny, but we'll control the machines and we'll tell them how they voted afterwards. And they will believe it. They'll believe it because it all looks very scientific and technically accurate.
Yeah, right.